Welcome, everybody. This session is what to expect at your first event. And presenting this session is Mannie Lowe, who is the First Tech Challenge Program Delivery Partner of Mississippi. So Mannie, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. And I'll go ahead and moderate the questions. Go ahead and enter a question in the chat, and I will ask the question. So Mannie, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and thank you for stealing my first slide. Rebecca. Yes, my name is Mannie Lowe. I am the program delivery partner for First Tech Challenge in Mississippi. I'm glad you're all here. This afternoon, we're going to talk about preparing for your first event. So getting going here. All right, here's a general overview of what we're going to talk about today. Some assumptions about what I'm describing, what a traditional tournament event would look like, what a traditional league meet might look at.
Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
Tom, I think that's you. What a traditional league meet looks like, how to get ready for it, what remote events will look like this year, and we'll be sprinkling in some Q&A throughout the presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the First Tech Challenge season. And the reason whoops, sorry, went too fast. Welcome to the First Tech Challenge, and the reason for having your team work all season, the actual event where your team can shine. The majority of this presentation is based on a team attending a traditional tournament event with a full day of action, which includes judging, inspection, matches, and awards. In other words, what things were like before this ugly thing called COVID, or even a traditional league meet event. We'll talk about the differences with these and remote events later in the presentation. So, machine. Here's what a venue may look like. When you enter, you will, the coach or the lead mentor will check the team in, and that's usually just one adult, and you'll do that at the registration table, while the rest of the team finds their pit assignment and starts setting it up. Notice there may be a practice field set up in the pit area as well. You'll then be going to get your robot inspected, or your team will go to judging. When you're not doing one, you should be definitely doing the other. And the competition will take place on the field in front of thousands of screaming fans. Well, maybe hundreds, well, maybe 20. It depends on your event. That's what the venue might look like. Here's what an agenda for the day would look like. So be prepared for an all-day event. Mornings are filled with the check-in, judging, and inspection. Please, please, please make sure you give your team enough time to do the inspection as well as judging. You should do your inspection when you're not in a judging session, and some events may have your inspection times scheduled, like your judging times, which should be scheduled. Others expect you to have it done prior to the driver's meeting. You usually receive the match schedule during the driver's meeting, if not before. Mid-morning has an opening ceremony where volunteers are recognized, judges are introduced, national anthems are played, and the game animation may be shown. Right after the opening ceremonies, matches will begin. If you are in the first 2 to 4 matches, please make sure your robot is ready to go and either on the field or in the queue. During the matches, teams are introduced to the audience, and then they start with their 30 seconds of autonomous activity, followed by 2 minutes of the driver control period. So that's a match. And depending on how many fields are being run, matches may bounce between different fields. Just be in the queuing line when you are requested to be there. Around lunchtime, you may be given a break to get some lunch. Depending on the host, the venue, and other logistics and arrangements, lunch may be provided by the host, or you may have to designate someone from your team, either a parent or a tertiary mentor, to run out and pick up your lunch for the team. Please do not take the entire team somewhere out to lunch. You might not return in time for your afternoon matches. After lunch, the qualification matches continue. You can find some matches are run very quickly, like one match every 5 to 7 minutes. And other times they may run every 10 minutes, depending on how many teams you have in a match. Be prepared for all of the possibilities. Make sure you have your robots' batteries charged and everything all set to go. Also be aware, if you've got more than one field, of which field your robot's going to run on. For example, we had a team here in Mississippi at a qualifier several years ago that was declared a no-show because they reported to the wrong field. They were on field 1 for a match, and then they said, okay, we're in the next match, and they thought it was going to be on field 1, and it ended up being on field 2. And we were looking for them in their pits. We were looking for them all over the place. We couldn't find them. When we couldn't find them, we said, oh, we got to run this match. And so they were declared a no-show. When all of the qualification matches have been run, then there'll be an alliance selection and elimination rounds will commence. And I'll go over more details on what that means in the next slide. After all of the matches have completed, the award ceremony commences. This is where all of the awards are given out and advancements, if any, to the next round of competition is announced. Then you pack up your pits, help clean up a little bit, and head home celebrating what you've accomplished for the day. All righty. Now more about the alliance selection and the elimination round. As you are finishing your last match, you should be putting together your alliance selection list based on the scouting you've been doing. Scouting, what's that? Well, we'll talk about that shortly. After the last qualification match, one representative from each team will be asked to line up in order to do the elimination round alliance selection. All the matches so far, which are called qualification matches, have been to determine the ranking from 1 to the number of teams based on either the match score, the number of wins and losses, or other criteria listed in Part 1 or Part 2 of the game manual. This leads to the conclusion and picking of alliance captains. The top 4 teams of the ranking become your alliance captains. Depending on how many teams are at the tournament, each alliance will then pick either a second team or even a third team to join their alliance. And then if you have 3 teams at an alliance, since only 2 are allowed on the field at any one time, 2 will play for 1 match, and then the third one will join the next match, swapping in one of the other 2 teams. So basically, for every round, you've got to play all 3 robots. So the number 1 seed will play the number 4 seed, the number 2 seed will play the number 3 seed, and they'll do that in a best 2 out of 3 series at each level. You have your semifinals, best 2 out of 3, then your finals, best 2 out of 3, and whoever wins the best 2 out of 3 in the finals becomes the winner of the event. So that was all about what a traditional tournament, also known as a qualifier, looks like. The difference between that and a league meet is that the meet is only concerned about match play. They don't concern themselves about judging or anything like that. So here's what the venue and agenda for a league meet may look like. Consider that league meets are basically qualification matches stretched out over many weeks. So for example, if you're in a league, you will be able to run multiple qualification matches, 5 or 6 matches at a time, to determine your top 10 best matches going into your league tournament. And that to your league tournament, you get 5 to 6 more matches, and then you determine your rankings and elimination rounds there. So all you do at a league meet is get your robot inspected and run matches. A meet lasts anywhere from 3 to 5 hours as opposed to a full day event. You also might not need the full team present at a league meet, although it helps to have them all there. You'll play in several meets throughout the season, which will lead into the league tournament, where your top 10 matches are brought in as your initial ranking. Then the league tournament was, as described previously, i.e. the all-day event with judging, inspections, and more matches and awards. All righty, I know I've gone through that very quickly, so if we have any questions so far, feel free to either unmute yourself and ask, or type them in the chat window, and we'll see if we have any questions. Becca?
So do you want to maybe highlight what a pit looks like? Or what can a team put up in a pit?
What can a team, I wish I had pictures. I don't, I'm sorry. What a pit may look like is basically anywhere from an 8x8 or even just a table, depending on the size of the venue, up to a 10 foot by 10 foot area where you basically, that's your home for the event. You can put up pit displays, you can bring your previously won trophies, you obviously want a place to work on your robot inside your pit, so you want your tools and other things available in case you need to swap out a drivetrain or a motor. If a motor burns out in the field, you want to make sure you'll be able to get at that. You want to be able to have an area where you can charge your batteries. Each pit area should have, the venue should give you one power spot for you to plug in. Make sure that when you come to an event, bring a power strip so that you can attach to it, because you're going to be wanting to plug in your laptop, your battery charger, your phone chargers if you're still using cell phones, and all of that fun stuff.
But just for clarification, though, it's the electricity needs to be accessible to the pits, not necessarily in the pit space.
Correct.
Yep.
Right. Depends on your venue.
Yep.
Any other questions?
What should a team bring to an event?
We'll get to that shortly.
Oh, okay. All right. I think you can go ahead and proceed.
Move ahead.
Yeah.
All righty. So, pop quiz. It's 2 to 3 weeks before the event. You haven't heard anything from the host or the PDP. What should you do? A, panic. B, cry. C, don't worry, be happy. Or D, contact them. And no, the answer is not E, all the above. Obviously, the answer is D. Calmly let the host or league coordinator or the PDP know that you haven't heard from anybody yet. They should reassure you when information will be sent out, or if they'll work on make sure that information is sent to you, or that you're given all the information that you need. In the meantime, start making lists. You'll need them because memory is the second thing to go. Here are some sample lists that you want to create. Make sure you put your team number on tools and other items that you might lend out. So you want to make sure you create a packing list. Tools, power strips, laptops, batteries, chargers, all those things. Put your team number on them. So in case you loan something out, you get it back. Pit display stuff, posters, pictures, your engineering notebook, other giveaways. Some teams like to exchange buttons or other paraphernalia. Don't bring food to give away or candy or anything like that. Sometimes that's frowned upon by the venues. Bring your match checklist. This includes a pre-match or post-match checklist. We'll talk about that in a slide or two. Make sure you remember your rosters and consent forms. Make sure that you as a coach have an emergency contact information for every member of your team in case, God forbid, something happens. Food and drink, if allowed, in the venue. I would say 7 times out of 10, food or drink would not be allowed in venues. Depends on the type of venue and type of event it's going to be. So, what did I forget in any of all that? A small little bitty thing, the robot. A little item called your robot. Make sure you don't forget your robot. Write it down on a list and check it off. Yes, I have been to an event, a couple of events where teams left their robot home. It's like, okay, who's going back to go get it? You know, if you're within 15 minutes, you can easily do that. Mississippi, you can't get anywhere in Mississippi unless it takes 2 to 3 hours to get there. So make sure that you bring your robot. Write that down on a list. Robot. Make sure one of your student team members is in charge of the robot. I know some teams actually, they will pack kids, everybody in the back of the minivan, and the robot is sitting up front in the shotgun seat. So making under seat belts and everything like that. So make sure you have that robot.
Can I interject really quickly, Manny?
Please.
I have been to an event where it's a very exciting time and there's a lot of energy going around and stuff like that, that the coach actually forgot a kid at the event when they were leaving. And it was, 8 o'clock at night and after a long day. So please have somebody maybe even do a checklist and make sure you have all your students too.
Yes. Don't forget a kid either.
Yeah.
That's also a good thing to remember. All righty. So leaving home, make sure that you check your list, you check your team members, you pack your items, you give yourself time to get lost to get to the venue, check your list one more time, and please drive safely. Make sure you get there safe, on time, everything's all good to go. When you arrive at the venue, gather everyone together, help the students unload items, but make sure to bring the team members, haul everything in. That's why they're there. It's called child labor. Yes, it's not allowed, but use it, take advantage of it. Make sure the team members are there to help set up the pit. Like I said, when one coach or adult mentor goes and checks the team in at the registration desk, it's not fun when you're running an event, when a team has already is set up their pit and they've gone through inspection and they haven't picked up their information that they need in order to at the registration desk. At the registration desk, bring your team roster, any signed consent forms, if we're still doing those this year, although they're all supposed to be electronic, and other forms requested to turn in. If you hadn't paid for the event, make sure you bring any payment that's due at the event there. We've at qualifiers, we've had people bring in cash to pay for their qualifier when they get there. We gladly accepted it. And then when you arrive, prepare for judging and inspection. Make sure that you bring to inspection your robot, game pads, a charged battery, and any self-inspection forms. Those are in part 1 and part 2 of the game manual, part 1 of the game manual, actually, just to show that you've done an inspection for your own robot. That's a good thing to check. And also because when the inspector goes through your robot, you can compare notes. And also make sure that you bring to judging any judge giveaways. Judges love bribes, any presentation needs, and bring your robot to the judging section if you're doing in-person judging. All righty. Here's an example of a pre-match checklist. One thing that I actually saw a wonderful team, Schrodinger's Hat, world champion, Inspire Award winner from Alaska, and then moved to Virginia. They made sure they had several copies of this checklist, and at every match they had a little sheet of all the things on the checklist, and they check things off as they go through it. And then when they were done that checklist got thrown away, and then they had the next checklist. Even if they were running back-to-back matches, they made sure they checked everything out. So, make sure that they have on the checklist what to bring to the field: the robot, the game pads, driver station phone or the driver hub, the robot controller phone, or the control hub that's on the robot. It should already be on the robot. Drive team buttons. Make sure that if you've got any buttons or other paraphernalia that shows who's supposed to be on the drive team, you'll have 2 drivers and 1 coach, and maybe even a human player. Make sure they have their buttons and that they're visible for the referees. Safety glasses. Remember about safety glasses. They go over your eyes. They don't go on top of the forehead. They don't go over the chest. They are safety glasses that go over the eyes. Matches won't start without them. Alliance markers, those are the red squares or the blue circles that should be on two sides of the robot to tell the audience what alliance you're in. And read part 1 of the game manual to figure out what those things are. Set your robot on your field, make sure all your cables are loose, power on your robot, power on any cell phones, check the connectivity. If you have any issues with making sure that the robot's not talking to the driver station, call the FTA or the CSA if there are problems, and make sure you got your robot aligned on the field. These are all on this checklist and you check them off. Preload any game elements if the game requires you to have game elements loaded, or if it's optional, if you wanted to have game elements loaded, preload them. Initialize your robot, set down the driver station and the game pads, and wait for the autonomous period to begin. Check the state of the field. Make sure that it's supposed to look like what you think it's supposed to look like. If there's any problems with it, don't go on the field and fix it. Tell the referee and saying, hey, should that be there or does it need to be? Because remember, all the referees and field reset people, they're all volunteers. So they're working as fast as they can. They may miss something. When you're ready to go, you give a thumbs up to the referee or the MC and say, when they say red alliance, are you ready? Give them a thumbs up. Prepare any intro or dance tip of the hat. We've seen teams, okay, introducing team number 1, 2, 3, 4, the Magnetos, and they might do something crazy. And then be prepared to start the match. 3, 2, 1, go. You press the start button and the robot goes off and does its thing. You've run your match, you've finished up. Here's a post-match checklist. You might not need multiple copies of this, but you should have one laminated and refer to it after every match so you don't leave anything behind. Wait for the referee to signal the field reset. Don't go on the field until the referee tells you, all right, reset. Gather the robot on the field, remove any game elements still inside the robot and leave those on the field. Reset your robot to a manageable state. For as if you have an arm that's extended all the way, make sure you retract it so that you can actually help carry that thing, and then power off the robot before you leave the field. Gather any driver station items, game pads, phones, cables, and exit the field back to the pit or back in the queue if you're doing a quick cycle time. All right. Scouting. Scouting is the process your team does during the qualification matches in order to prepare for the elimination round. If you are not selected to participate in the eliminations, your robot day is done, but you should stick around for the closing ceremonies because that's when awards get announced and you're still up for an award. Scouting is important during tournament events, as this may determine which teams move on to more competitions. During the qualification rounds, a set of team members should watch every match if you have a large team that they can do this, and take note on how the teams play on the field. How many points do they score? Do they have a reliable autonomous program or 2 or 3 different autonomous programs? Do they have any connectivity or other robot issues during a match or before a match? Do they run reliably? Does the team panic during a match? And will your robot work well with them if you think you're going to be aligned with them during the elimination rounds? All of these should be considered, plus many more. Resources for scouting are available on the web. All you do is just do a quick Google search for FTC scouting tactics or even FRC scouting tactics and read through some of those sites for pointers. The blog post that I list in the slides here is from 5 years ago, actually 6 years ago now, but it's still very appropriate. So that's a good place to start, but Google is your friend on all this. All righty, round 2. Any more questions? Any suggestions of what?
Yep, what to put your robot on to transport it?
Any suggestions? It's always good, to make sure that it's maybe build a box for it. A good box size that you might want to build might be, for some reason, 18 inches by 18 inches by 18 inches. so that if it fits in that, you're going to pass inspection. Maybe not. Maybe you want to go a little bit bigger. Or make sure that you're able to secure it to either a flat piece of wood or something like that, so it doesn't get jostled or moved around so much. I've seen both. The other way of other kinds of robot transport is done actually at the venue. It's good to have a cart to go from the pits to the field, and put your robot on the cart to help move it around. That way you're not carrying this potentially up to 42-pound robot, or even heavier if there's no limit on weight, to carry to the field. Put it on a cart to help move things around. A good cart to use are one of those old AV carts from schools, or I've known some teams that have converted a shopping cart. They got a shopping cart donated by a local grocery store, and they converted it and painted it and coated it, whatever they coated the things with, and use that. They put a lazy Susan on top. So if they want to work on it, it's sitting on the top, and they can turn their robot and they can work on the robot while it's still on the cart.
Just a confirmation though, Manny, you are not encouraging teams to go to your local grocery store and take one.
No, always get one donated.
Yeah.
Get one donated.
Or a Rubbermaid cart is a good idea too. So, and somebody said an IKEA bag. So yeah. Yep.
Wow, that would be a pretty hefty IKEA bag.
And maybe the IKEA bag would be good for all the accessories, such as the power strips and the controllers and, you know, the everything else than
Right.
the actual robot. So yeah.
Yep.
I would
Alrighty.
maybe recommend to get something with wheels, because at some events there is a little bit of a distance from the pits to the competition field. So either build one or purchase one or something, or make one. I mean, it's
Make
yeah. There's all sorts of
If
options.
I actually saw a veteran team from Rover Ruckus, took the elements out of Rover Ruckus from the legs, folded them inside, attached wheels to it, and that they turned that into their robot cart.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
It,
One of
it was
Iowa team.
It was very neat.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say there's an Iowa team that did that as well. So yeah.
I think that's
Right.
the one I'm talking about.
Cool. All right. No other questions. So feel free to. Oh.
I think I missed this.
Here.
Does First have checklists online? No, they don't. They should. I may ask them to provide that for them. But nope, but you will have them now, because you're going to get a copy of these slides.
Yep, and as it was an IKEA bag to transport into venue, tough and louse ties. Yep, screws and stuff that fall off stay in the bottom of the bag. Absolutely.
Right.
Yep, very cool. Very cool. All right, no other comments or questions, so go for it.
All righty. Okay, what about remote events? Well, we hope to be back to some semblance of normalcy for our First Tech Challenge teams this season. However, First has planned that some places may not be completely back to traditional events due to local restrictions and the like. So we will have some places that will run remote events. Remote events are ones where teams compete while practicing social distancing. So they'll be playing their matches on their field by themselves. During remote events, you will have up to a 7-day window to do your judging. If it's a tournament, run your matches and submit your scores. Section 4 of Game Manual Part 1 goes into all the details about how to run remote events. Highly recommend you read it, should you believe you will have to do any remote events this season. I hope, pray that we won't have to do this, but who knows? We've got, the Kickoff is September 18th. We're 5-6 weeks away from kickoff, and then 5 to 6 weeks after that, then seasons will probably begin. So we have that much time to try to work out this variant of COVID. So remote events, if you have not been, basically you run your own matches at your own site using half a field or a semblance of the field. You can buy a partial field. That's one of the options that you can to purchase your fields this year. And submit your scores online. There's no videos of fields. We trust the teams to do their matches fairly using gracious professionalism. Just make sure that you know how to score them, and all your partners out there will know how to do that and help you get started with that. What about hybrid events? Hybrid events are a combination of traditional and remote events together as one event. They're usually done as remote judging events with traditional gameplay events. Like remote events, a judging time will be set up with you and the event coordinator. So for example, you may be at a hybrid qualifier or a hybrid league tournament where on Saturday before you run your matches, you may be scheduled to do a judging interview session or sessions with judges. I'm planning on doing hybrid events in Mississippi this year, where my judging I hope to take place the Thursday night prior to a Saturday event. So Thursday afternoon, from 4 until 8 p.m. Where they do their initial presentation to the judges. And then at the event on Saturday, we will have either all the judges or a subset of the judges do the pit interviews. And those will take place either remotely or in person at the event. That's what my plan is in Mississippi. While hybrid events are not called out as a separate event in the game manuals, they are allowed to be run this year, and it'll be up to each program delivery partner to decide how they will be run. So hybrid events, you'll get your rankings and results sometime after the 7-day window is finished for the event, either remote or hybrid, and then you'll determine what your rankings are. So judging during remote and hybrid events, teams that compete in remote or hybrid events are eligible for judged awards. The judging interviews are held by a video conference. Those are always set up by the local program delivery partner or the event director or even the judge advisor for that event. And the FTC scoring system is used for the video conferencing system. That's sometimes some PDPs may use Zoom as well, but the new FTC scoring system, online scoring system, has been set up to handle the video conferencing facilities. We've used them a couple of times last year. I used it as being a judge for Oklahoma and for Delaware. I'm sorry, for Pennsylvania, and it works really, really, really well. So highly recommend getting used to using the FTC scoring system for that if you're going to be going remote or hybrid. And you would use the scoring system to upload your engineering portfolio, any control award submissions, or request judging feedback. We're continuing the judging feedback this year, and there'll be official scores that are available through the FTC scoring system as well. That's where you post your scores. I'm getting close to the end, so here's my final round of Q&A. And open it up. We've got lots of time, 15 minutes or so. for you to ask away any questions. We also have the next hour for nothing but questions. So that's what I have. Feel free to unmute yourself or type away in the chat. I'll even go to my last page and then stop my sharing so we can all see each other. Yay. These slides will be available on the Google Drive. Thanks to Rebecca for that.
And also, in case you're wondering, First does have several YouTube videos about a remote event. I just did a quick YouTube search for FTC events. I know in the past, I think it was the state of Washington that put together a really great video about what to expect at an event. And this was probably 6 or 7 years ago. It's a little outdated, but I think it's also really important to know kind of the layout and the schedule, the overall schedule of an event. I think that was Washington, right, Manny?
Other than what I just did.
But it's a good video to reference, you know, have your kids watch it like maybe the week leading up to the event.
Yeah. I don't recall that one.
I'll see if I can find it quick, but
How do we get access to the Google Drive?
I'll send it out throughout the week once I get the YouTube video or the videos uploaded to YouTube.
Great.
There are a few folks who I don't have email addresses for. If you could just IM me, put them in the chat. Thank you, Fiona, for sticking with us. I know it is 5 a.m., so we certainly
it's 5
appreciate
a.m.
it.
Thank you, Fiona. Can a team do both remote and in-person events?
That is really up to the region that the team is located in.
Correct. Generally, I mean, as far as last year goes, if you were in a league that did remote events, you couldn't mix and match remote with in-person. If you go above that, for example, remote league events may be turning into in-person league tournaments or even into regional tournaments. When I'm talking about league and then league tournaments or league meets, league tournaments and regional tournaments, and then sometimes there's the in between there, like for example in Iowa, there's the super regional or super
qualifier.
There's the different levels where you can advance to. All league meets will all teams that are in a league will advance to a league tournament. So there will be a round of judging being done for all teams. But there are also some teams that don't do leagues, they just do qualifiers, or some regions do both. Qualifiers are just basically a full day tournament, different than league meets. So it's up to the regional partner, to the program delivery partner and their committee to figure things out.
Also, please note though, it really just kind of depends up to each PDP, program delivery partner, as to whether or not they will accept teams from outside of their region. So for example, in Iowa, we do have a lot of teams that we serve. So our priority is the Iowa teams. At this time, we only accept teams from Nebraska. If you live in California, I know that their boundaries, there's a Northern California and a San Diego and a LA region. So please do kind of reach out to your PDP and then maybe even reach out to the surrounding PDPs, and you can find all of our contact information on the first website. It says contact us. But don't assume that you'll be able to compete in other states because they might have closed borders, as we call it. So Manny, is Mississippi closed borders?
Yes, unfortunately.
So you do not accept teams from other states or regions.
Correct. And that's due to our funders.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. So, and then the PDP and their committee decide the implementation route, whether it be remote, hybrid, or traditional. So yeah.
Like for example, we're thinking of in-person league meets, hybrid league tournaments, and maybe even hybrid championship.
And also, not every region does the league meets. It really just kind of depends on the committee and the number of teams in the region that they have to serve. I know, for example, I think it's Tennessee who does not do league meets. I don't think Michigan does, or maybe they did last year. So there's several different tournament levels that
Right.
each state or region implements.
And each of these levels is defined in part 1 of the game manual.
Is it?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure about that. Yeah. So yeah, any other questions? Otherwise, we can either all disconnect or come back in a few minutes and do a Q&A. I know that the information we've sent to you today has been a lot. If you feel like you need to process it a little bit and then ask questions, or if you still feel completely overwhelmed, that is okay. This is basically as a set of resources for you right now. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.